So I wanted to get started on part 3 quickly so that you can finish off this series. So I'm going to go through 2 topics. One is the authoring of the pump shotgun for the fire sequence. And then we're going to build on that to author the reload sequence. But before we jump into all the details, why don't we jump in game and I'll show you the fire sequence as a finished product. And then we'll come back and go through the rest of the steps. So let's take a look at the final product, at least as best as I can configure it without a lot more time. We're going to go ahead and go slow-mo. I'm just going to slow us down. And then I'm going to do the aim down sight, even though it causes the hand to move a little bit off where I want it to be. You see where the hand is further extended. But if I do aim down sights, you get to see that the fingers are wrapping the barrel much more effectively. And as I move left to right, they more or less hold to the gun. Now, a very rapid move will cause some shifting, but for the most part, they stay with the gun and track with the gun. Now let's go ahead and fire. And you can see that the hand animation is probably not the best, but the pump is definitely moving. The timing might be a little bit off. And a bit rough, but you get the general idea that the fire all right, so that's kind of the end product. Let's go look at all the pieces to get the fire functioning. Okay, so in order to pull off the fire, there's a couple of things we need to just set down as foundation. So this might be basic for a lot of people, but the shotgun has a data blueprint that defines the data elements that when you fire the shotgun, the Lyra shotgun, that it uses. What we're going to do is we're actually going to make a child of this and then change some of these values. But basically, this data asset, the weapon fire shotgun, has a parent class weapon fire where there's some blueprint logic in it, which is based upon a C++ class ranged weapon. So C++ class, child is the weapon fire, child is the weapon fire shotgun, and then our weapon fire pump will be a child of the shotgun, where we will change some of these values. The montage has 2 important elements to it. So the firing montage, which controls the additive, and it's an important element, the additive animation that gets played in the full body additive pre-aim down sights slot, also triggers an Anim notify to play another montage. So this linkage controls which montage to play on the actual weapon. So when we play this montage in this slot, we will trigger this notify, which starts this weapon. If you look into the burst, maybe I should back up too, hold on. So the Anim montage is one of the elements we're going to change. The other thing we're going to do is we're going to change this gameplay cue, because all of the sound effects and muzzle flashes are triggered off of a gameplay cue of type burst. So let's take a look at that. When you look at the gameplay cue for the shotgun fire on burst, it basically runs a couple of nodes. The most important part of that is it's listening for this particular gameplay cue, and it's using this particular sound asset in its flow. And so we're going to replicate that for our pump shotgun. Then if you look inside the Lyra shotgun, that's the sound file, which is far too complicated for me to spend time on in this video. So instead, we're going to make a very simplified. We're going to make a sound file that looks like this, where it simply does a wave play of a wave file that we downloaded earlier. So we need to create our meta sound, which we're just going to embed a wave file in. We need to set up our burst for the sound. We need to add the gameplay tag. We need to update the gameplay ability to use the right tag to fire the right montage. And then we need to extend the shotgun's animation to allow for the pump. And that is the bulk of what we're going to do in this video, is that last element. So I already said this is how we're going to set up the sound file. We're going to include in the montage for the weapon, we're going to include the pump open and pump close sound effects when the bar moves forward and backwards. It's easiest to time it that way. You can just scrub over, find the right point, and drop these two notifies to play sounds. So that'll take care of our firing sound and then our pump sound. Our gameplay cue is going to listen to this new tag called weapon pump fire. And so when you drop this arrow down, you can create an add tag, create the tag name, make sure you remember it and type it correctly, because that's what has to go into the gameplay ability. Then we changed our sound effect here. Again, this is a child of the shotgun. So we didn't copy the shotgun, we made a child class of it. Change that and change that. And then we go to the gameplay ability and we make sure we have the right montage to play and the right cue to fire so that our sound effects happen and our animations happen. So to create the animation, what we're going to do is we're going to take the current shotgun animation, which is currently 20 frames. We're going to enable a little bit of dead space after that completes, maybe 5 frames. And then we're going to create a pump sequence over maybe 15 frames. So basically we're taking the exact same shotgun animation on the character, spacing it out, and then creating these sequences. And that's all got to be done in an additive animation. And so the workflow for that's a little bit different. What we're going to end up doing is we're going to take the original additive animation and we're going to convert that into a standard animation. The only reason we're doing this is you cannot take the additive animation into the level sequencer. At least I couldn't find a way to do that. It comes off, it doesn't scale up right. So the add step is to take that additive animation, convert it to a standard animation, which is very simple. Open up the level sequence, bring that standard animation into the level sequence, bake it to the control rate so we can manipulate it, do our various edits, and then export that back to a new animation in standard animation format. And then we'll take that standard animation and we'll make it an additive animation so that we can take that new additive animation and include it in the rest of our flow. So hopefully that helps as we're navigating through the editor. Jumping into the editor, I've gone ahead and opened up the pump fire animation. Now, it's called pump fire. I changed it to the word additive on the end so that we're clear into what we're dealing with. So in my pump folder, I took what was originally pump fire. I renamed it to pump fire additive. Here, I can just delete this one. I think that's not used anywhere right now. Okay, so I basically went in, renamed that to additive, opened it up here, and what you'll see is if you look at the asset details and you scroll down, you'll see down right about here the additive settings, and it should say mesh based. and it should say selected animation frame, and then it's using this frame at the tail end of this to make this an additive animation. See, the reference frame index is 28 right here. So this is the additive that we need to use in our animation. And so to show that, what I did is I created this very simple Anim montage or blueprint. Is if I don't add this additive, if I simply did this, this is the, oh wait, sorry, compile. This is the pump idle hip fire animation looping, and the fire is additive. So if I tried to add this directly in like this, I get nothing. If I try to say, okay, it's additive, so let's use this additive node and pump it in like this, you get this weird jerking behavior. So the important thing is that the mesh space is the additive type. So you need to use the mesh space additive. And when you do that and you hook these two together properly, you get the effect we're looking for. So it's combining whatever animation is playing on the character, whether you're running or standing still, with this additive animation for the firing effect. So to get it from being additive to standard, it's actually a whole lot easier than you'd think. You just copy it, paste it. This is where I had renamed it to not be additive. Open that up and take this off. And so now I have a standard animation as opposed to an additive animation. And you'll note that if I hover over this, you'll see that the additive Anim type, it's about the 6th or 7th line down, is rotational offset mesh space. However, this one has additive animation type none. So that's step one, getting from being additive to regular. And again, it's just settings in the file, but I didn't want to be destructive. So that's still our source file. This is our new file. Then what we're going to do is go into the Animation Studio where we have our level sequence. We're going to open our level sequence, and I'm going to do this again. So let me do this. That's the right one. Let me do this all the way from the beginning. Character file. All right, so I'm going to do this completely from the beginning. This is the end product, but I'm going to blow that away and start again. So I'm going to delete that. So I have an empty. Now I'm going to delete him out of the level, save my sequencer, save my level. First thing I'm going to do is drag in my standard animation. So I'm going to take the standard, not the additive, and I'm going to drag them in. Now, I had him positioned here with the gun so that I could get the right look. So I might do that again. This is not critical, but it helped me to animate the appropriate distance on the hands. So I'll bring that in about there. And I'm just lining up these two in the world so that I get a general feel of where the hands are. Doesn't need to be perfect. I'm only doing it for reference. All right, so I have the animation loaded in the level. I'm now going to delete that because I thought I deleted that. Oh, you know what? It's because I was moving it. All right, so let's do this and then move the gun. So with the character selected, I'm going to do track, add actor to sequence, and because I have the character selected, it should show right here. And I'm going to add that. And what you're going to get is you're going to get this reference here, an animation track, and then it's actually blank. And so then we're going to hit this plus sign, and we're going to say we want to use the pump. This is a little bit quirky, but we want to use the pump fire animation, and you'll see that it loaded this purple bar in. Now, I have set this is the total workspace. So my total workspace goes from -17 to 80. If you just make that 200, it just means you have more workspace over here. I like a little more workspace than my video. And the video for the pump fire is 20 frames. And I wanted to wait maybe 10 frames of silence. And then I wanted about 10 frames to do the pump action. So I set the end of my video clip to 40. So now I have the animation. Again, I loaded it in first that way, then I added the animation. Now I'm going to click on this, right click, and I'm going to bake to control rig. So I'm going to bake this animation into a control rig. And I'm going to make sure I have the reduce keys on. And this is the threshold so that I don't just get a bunch of keyframes on every frame. I want to reduce that. So I'm going to hit create. And you'll see that a control rig is added to the character. And there's a series of keyframes. Now, what it did, because I had already extended this to 40, is it duplicated the fire. It basically did 20 frames and then it did 20 frames here. So I'm going to go ahead and just take those last 20 frames and delete them. And so I now have, if I hit play, I have the keyframes for the fire followed by a period of silence. What I'm going to do is move to keyframe 30. And then I'm basically going to stay in this exact same position. Now, remember, this is an additive. So any idle animations that are occurring in these 10 frames will still occur, but I won't change the animation for about 10 frames. And then I'm just going to come out here to this point and I'm going to hit the keyframe, and that's going to add a new keyframe right there. You saw how the line went out and snapped to here. Then I'm going to go 3 frames forward. And this is where I moved the shotgun. This is where it's important to kind of see the shotgun. So let's get this into place. This is not part of our sequence. That's why it's not doing anything in the sequence. I simply want it in the level about where the gun's going to sit. And again, for the tutorial, I'm not being terribly precise. Just going to come down a little bit. Probably should take snap off, but I'm not going to. All right, so the hand is in the back position, roughly where it needs to be. I'm at this keyframe at 33. So after being still for about 10 keyframes, I'm going to grab the arm, the left arm control, this one right here, and I'm going to slide my hand, oops, that's the thumb, the control, and I'm going to slide that forward 2 snaps. So I am snapping 5. So I moved it forward 10 units. And you can look around and see what else you might want to do to basically mimic that. That's enough for you to see it working in action. So I'm going to go ahead and snap another keyframe here on the left FK controller with this button. And you'll see that it created this keyframe here. Then I'm going to go forward 2 frames. And I'm going to key it again, because I want them to stay here for 2 frames. This might be the wrong thing. Then I'm going to go 2 frames and bring it back to the original position. I probably did that the wrong way, but let's do it anyway. Here, 2 frames here. So what that basically will look like see how I did too many of those? That's really not what you want to do. So I think the first keyframe, let's go back to here. My hand is here. My hand should actually be on the front of the thing. So I want to come back to this keyframe. I'm going to pull back 1, 2, which should be the exact same position. It is. I want to go back 2 from here. 1, 2. Key that. Then I want to go and stay in that same position. I might need to go back 4. Yeah. Need to go back 2 more. Then I want to go forward 3. In that position, I'm going to go here. And then let me see what that looks like. So that's starting to look a little bit like the hand is doing the proper thing. Now the elbow looks a little odd since it's so stationary. But you can fix that by maybe this keyframe. You might take this and give it a hair of a rotation up. Probably not really the right way. Let's try to keyframe that. So now we're on the lower arm. We're going to keyframe that there. And then here, let's keyframe it back. This is probably a mistake. I'm probably going to delete these. But you'll get the idea that you can move multiple bones. I'm not really thrilled with that. But that's basically the idea, is you're going to be adjusting the keyframes here until you get it the way you like it. I'm going to delete those two. And when you're happy with your animation, so now you've got kind of your animation the way you like it, you're going to go back up to this top of the sequencer. You can save sequencer if you want. And you're going to right click that, and you're going to bake that to a new Anim sequence. And you can put it anywhere you want. Of course, we have all these folders, so I've got to go all the way down to weapons, pump, assets, animations. And I had done it pump, fire, eject as the way I named it. I'm just going to call this 2 so I don't have to redo it. And then you can leave all of these the same. And you will end up with a standard animation here, which has the new animation baked into it and is now 40 frames long instead of 20. Then you simply copy and paste that and call it additive. Come over to your properties, change your additive to mesh space. You can pick a frame from this animation, which is what I did. I just took the last frame as my reference pose. And so now I have this new additive animation that fires, waits, and then pulls the pump action. And you can see that here, that if I run the pump fire, This was the original. This is our modified version. So now we have the animation we need to finish our montage. The last two things you need to do is in the additive animation that we just made it, so our pump, fire, eject additive, we're going to go ahead and add two curves. So we're going to add curve disabling the left hand IK and disabling the left hand pose override. So by adding those two curves, you can, let's just edit this one. You can, what do I do? The pose override, this is what's causing my fingers to open up and then close back down. So this just allows me to vary the fingers. I probably made this too abrupt, or maybe this was too gentle. I have to look at the video again. But that allows me to shape the fingers. And then the IK is linear. So basically for the first 21 frames, we have the IK on. And then from frame 21 to frame 38, we have the IK off, and then we put it back on. So that just controls the left hand override and the hand IK. And if you go to your pump, fire, and a montage, you will just select the old one. Yours will probably say pump, fire. Over here, you just select your new additive. And then what I found is you want to clear the end time. Your end time might be truncated. So in Montage, you can truncate end time. And I found that when I changed the Anim reference, it didn't clear this out. So you just go ahead and clear that out and it'll go back to the full length. And that should be it. All right, so after this, we're going to build on this and do the reload. So just like in the fire, let's see the final product. So I'm going to fire a couple of rounds and then reload. Now let's reload. And you can see that it did 4 reloads because we were short 4 shells. 2 shells. 3 shells. And if we only have 3 shells left, but we need 6 in the gun, you only get 3 loaded. So it's functioning well. Let's go look at the code. Let's take a look at the base class called Reload Magazine. You can find that in the content, weapons, and reload. Weapon reload is the parent to the shotgun reload, as well as the rifle and the pistol. And it is appropriately named Reload Magazine because it makes the assumption that you're loading a magazine. And as I said earlier, our pump shotgun is a single load shell at a time. So we're not going to be able to use this logic as written. Basically what it does is it attempts to block firing if firing is not already blocked. It plays the single montage for the reload. It waits to know that the animation has reached a certain point, and then it actually reloads the magazine. It automatically fills you up to however much ammo you had. And then on endability, it just goes ahead and allows you to start firing again. So for our purposes, we're going to copy that. So we're going to just, copy this reload, move down into our weapon folder, and just paste it here. And I named mine Reload Individual. So right now, as of this moment, it's exactly the same logic. I just wanted to make a copy so that we could edit it without destroying the magazine reload. So you can see that it's exactly the same on the inside. Nothing has changed. Then go into your pump reload. Right here. And go to show all. It'll open up as a data asset for you. Go ahead and say show all. Go to class settings and reparent it from magazine to individual. So if you just basically change it from magazine to individual, it'll give you a warning, but because the class is identical, we won't lose any data. And now your pump reload is going to be based on this new individual one, which we will come back to and edit. So that's step one. Then we need to split our animation up for the pump shotgun. And so the nice thing is we already did the open and close in this fire animation, right? So when we authored this animation in the earlier section, we basically fired, opened, and closed our magazine. And it's really simple. And I will show you what I did. So if you copy that and paste it, I'll just show you this one for demo. So if you make a copy so that you don't destroy the original, you can go into your copied asset. And I need to make it into 3 different assets. I need to make an open, a load, and a close. And so what you do is basically trace to where it starts to open, right here. So frame 9. And if you move here and then right click, you can remove, sometimes does that, frame 9, right click, saying 12. For whatever reason, sometimes it does that. There we go. Right click, remove frames 0 to 9, and that will delete the front of this. Then I can go forward until the animation pauses. So sort of frame 6. Do the same thing. Remove from, I'm going to do that anyway. It says 9. It did 6. So I think that's just a typo in the tooltip. It actually did what I wanted it to do. And so now if I play this animation, it's just the open. All right. And you can do the exact same thing. So if I Control Z my way back, you can come to the end of the, so here's close. So let's get close, right? So we're open. We start to close there. So we're going to go here, remove frames before. Did not move right frames. A little finicky. Close that down. So for the close, what am I missing? Then do the exact same thing to create a close. You open your asset. I find it easier to look at it from the side. Find the frame where it starts to move forward. That's sort of right in here, frame 16. Not sure why this is incorrectly stating the frame number. Okay, remove the front frames. And I think this one, it's all the way to the end. Yeah, so that's our close. And we save that as close. And then the other thing you can do, which is how I made my my load. Let's delete that. And let's copy our open. What I want it to do is have the chamber stay open for a number of frames as I'm loading. So I basically went to the end, and you can right click, insert a frame before. And so I'm inserting frames here. Then I'm just going to delete the front of this. And I inserted I inserted 10 frames total. So just keep doing this until you get to 10 frames. And then you basically have an animation where the chamber stays open for 10 frames. So that'll create the 3 individual assets. Nothing fancy. You're just chopping up your fire animation. And you should end up with a open, close, and load. Delete that. Then come to your Anim montage to reload. And here's where we're putting all the pieces together into a single montage. So we're using sections, montage sections, so that we can isolate and play the individual pieces as we want. And then we've attached the sound effect to each individual piece. So if I were to play the open, you get the open sound. If I were to play the, being really finicky about moving this. If I were to play the close, you get the close sound. And then if I'm to play the load, where all 10 frames it stays open, you're going to get the load sound effect. So in order to do this, what I'll do is I'll copy this and show you that exactly. Okay, now. All right, so you're going to have, this will say default. And the easiest thing to do is say I have the pump open. I'm going to drag pump close in. Select the track. Pump close in and load. And so I end up with all 3 of these sequentially through. Then I can come and do a new montage section and call it pump close. And align that right here. And then do another montage section here called pump load. And do that. And then I'm going to come over here to my montage sections. And by default, it's going to play 1, then 2, then 3. So I'm going to clear that, and you'll see that it goes 1, 2, 3 individual. So each is an individual montage section, which we will call. And then on the notified track, you're just going to Here on the notify track, you're doing add notify, play the sound, click that, and then select your pump open sound. And just repeat that. You can drag this around to wherever you want that sound to occur, but those are the steps to create the montage. Make sure that you break it apart over here, that you clear the linkages, so that we end up with 3 sections that we can call one after the other. Next, we're going to update the character reload. So we've created these various assets. We've put them into a single montage with sections. Now what we're going to do, just for this test, this won't be our final, but let's go into the reload montage. And we're going to do a few things differently here. We actually have to change out the Anim notify, because the Lyra Anim notify play weapon montage doesn't allow us to pass in a section. So what we're going to do is go up to content, characters, heroes, mannequin, animation, notifies. And right here, you'll see the weapon montage. If we open that, upon receiving this notification, there's an exposed montage to play that's exposed instance editable. And if it does all of this logic here, it eventually gets to play the passed in montage. So we don't want to just pass a montage. We actually want to pass a montage and a section so that we're playing appropriately. So we're going to copy this one, the play weapon montage. We're going to copy that from here, and we're going to go down to our weapon folder. No, sorry. We're going to go down to our character folder, and in the same path, heroes, mannequin, animation, notify. We'll paste that here, but append the word section to it. So it will now be play weapon montage section. Open that up. I'm going to add a variable called section name. The type name. We're going to make sure it's instance editable, so it shows up in our montage. And then what we're going to do is, in this area of the original montage, so where it's playing the montage, right after that, we're going to add to jump to a section. So you just do montage jump, pull off of the Anim instance, do montage jump to section, and then you can basically pull this variable over, load it in. So this is the montage we're playing. That's going to come in through the parameters. This is the section we want to play. And this is the Anim instance we're playing it on. So by adding this, every time we call this Anim notify, we're going to be able to pass a section. Then the rest of this is exactly the same. So this is the only node we're adding to allow us to jump to a section. Add the variable, add the node, expose it. So that when we're in our reload, instead of add notify weapon montage, we're going to change those all to add weapon montage section. And that will allow us over here to define the various sections of the reload montage. So I've got one reload open, then I've got a load shell, and close. Now, we're not actually going to do it this way in the final because we have to break apart the animation, but I wanted to just test that these will in fact play the appropriate montages and their corresponding sound. So the way we'll know it works is in our reload montage for the weapon, we have these sound effects. So the open, the close, and the load. And what we're going to do is when we jump into the editor, or when we play, sorry, nothing else has to change at this point because we're doing it inside the exact ability. So we're going to go ahead and play. I'm going to first get the shotgun. I'm going to slow-mo again, just so there's enough time between the audio clips that you can hear that there are 4 distinct sounds and that the 2 in the middle are the load sound. So when I hit reload, sorry. There were the 4 sounds: the open, the load, and then the close. So we know that our Anim Notify works, so now we can go design our actual reload. So similar to the shotgun, I broke and all I did, I think, between the last video was I moved the fire and reload animations into 2 subfolders. We have our reload end, our reload load, both regular and additive, our start, regular and additive, and I just trimmed each of these down from the traditional reload. I didn't do anything. You now know how to author animations, so you can clean them up as you see fit. We then go into our Anim montage, and you'll see that we have our reload start and our additive. Those are playing on these 2 slots. So they're playing on the 2 different slots. They are triggering the corresponding weapon. So the pump start fires the start, the load fires the load on the gun, and the end fires the end. And then this final tag is what triggers when the gun is fully reloaded and ready to be used. So that's the pieces cut up, segment set. Don't forget to clear the linkages here. It will do the exact same thing. So our asset is set up, segmented into 3 sections. Then we went to then we go to this weapon reload individual that we had copied in the previous section. And this is where we made our changes. So I've got some testing. I don't need that print screen anymore. And I don't need this one anymore either. All right, so for this one, which we copied off the Reload magazine, the top is identical. Nothing changes here. Off of the second pin, we start the reload montage and we filled in the reload start. So when we start a new reload, we will always play this section. And then immediately we will start to wait for the Anim Notify that we're reloaded. Nothing different there. That is exactly the same. On complete or blend out, we will then go into our variable loop to determine how many montages we need to play of the reload. And upon completion of that loop, we will play our end and then end our ability. So basically it's copy and paste the montage weight 3 times. Make sure that you set your sections appropriately on the montages. This is the loop. And then basically we just found it easier to create this function that determines how many we need to load. And then we have a variable. As long as that variable is greater than 0, we'll take another turn through here. We'll decrement the variable one more time. And until we loop through there and hit 0, then we'll exit the gun. So that's that. Inside this function, fairly simple. We get the associated item, which is the equipment. We figure out what's the magazine size, in our case 6. How much ammo is in the magazine? That variable could be 3, could be 4, could be 0. And the delta between our capacity and how many we have says, okay, we might need 2 or we might need 3. Then we check how much ammo we have, and we do a min. We take the lower of. If I only have 2 ammo, but I need 4, the result is 2. And that's what we pass back. And then we loop through. So that's pretty much the only change. Since we already reparented the pump action to this one, that should be fine. That's all you need to do there. You create your Anim blueprint like this. I think that takes us to the end. So we've created our firing. We've created our reload. We've split it up, and we have the variable reload working. So hopefully you enjoyed this series. This will wrap up the more guns, and we'll look forward to our next step. Thanks for watching.